Once upon a time, there were two baby brothers named Romulus and Remus. Their granddad was a king, but their naughty great-uncle wanted the throne, so he chucked the babies in a basket and tossed them into the river Tiber. He probably thought, "That's the end of them." But he was wrong. The babies didn't drown. Instead, a friendly she-wolf found them. She didn't eat them. Nope. She raised them as her own cubs. Imagine having a wolf for a mum. Your school lunches would be very, very meaty. It's a bonkers beginning for what would become the world's greatest empire, isn't it? As the boys grew up, they decided to build a city. But they couldn't agree on where to put it. Romulus wanted to build it on the Palatine Hill. Remus liked the Aventine Hill better. They argued like only brothers can. To settle the fight, they watched the sky for birds. Remus saw 6 vultures. "Ha! I win!" he shouted. But then Romulus saw 12 vultures. "No, I win!" he yelled back. This silly bird-watching contest was the first of many Roman squabbles. It shows you that even the biggest empires can start with a daft disagreement. So Romulus started building his wall. Remus, still being a sore loser, made fun of it. He jumped over the half-built wall, shouting, "Look how easy it is to get over your silly wall." Big mistake. Romulus got so angry he killed his brother. Yes, you read that right. Rome was founded on a family fallout. Romulus named the new city Rome after himself. It's a bit cheeky to name a city after yourself, especially after you've just finished off your only sibling. But that's how the Romans rolled. Start as you mean to go on, with a bit of drama. From this messy, muddled start, Rome grew. It began as a tiny village full of huts, mud, and probably a lot of sheep. Nobody back then would have looked at this scruffy little settlement and thought, "One day this place will rule the world." They'd be more likely to think, "I hope that wolf doesn't come back." But slowly, bit by bit, the Romans got organised. They built things, they fought people, and they started dreaming big. They went from a backwater village to a bustling city, all thanks to a moody brother and some very helpful birds. How did Rome get so big? 2 words: brilliant armies. Roman soldiers were tough. They marched for miles, carrying heavy packs. They built forts, roads and bridges wherever they went. Their secret weapon was being incredibly organised. They fought in tight groups called legions, like a deadly football team. They conquered nearly everyone they met. If you saw a Roman army marching towards your village, you had 2 choices. You could join them and get a nice new road, or you could fight them and get a very pointy sword in your tummy. Most people chose the road, but who was in charge of this massive empire? Emperors, of course, and some of them were completely bonkers. Take Emperor Caligula. He was so crackers he made his favourite horse, Incitatus, a politician. He even planned to make the horse a consul, the most important job in Rome. Imagine a horse giving a speech in the Senate. Then there was Nero, who loved playing his lyre and singing. The trouble was, he was terrible. But if you were in the audience, you had to applaud. If you didn't, you might find yourself in a spot of bother with a hungry lion. When they weren't fighting or following mad emperors, rich Romans loved to party, and their parties were legendary. They didn't just have crisps and dip. Oh no, they had feasts called banquets, where they would lie on couches and eat for hours. The food was interesting. Fancy some roasted dormice dipped in honey? Or how about a flamingo's tongue? To make sure they could eat more, they would often go to a special room called a vomitorium to be sick, and then come back for another round. It sounds disgusting, and it was. Life wasn't all fun and games, though, especially if you were a gladiator. These were men, and sometimes women, who fought each other to the death in giant arenas like the Colosseum. Crowds would cheer as they battled with swords, nets and tridents. It was the most popular entertainment in Rome. Think of it as a very dangerous version of Saturday night television. Gladiators were superstars, but their careers were usually very short. If the crowd or the emperor gave a thumbs down, it was curtains for you. Ouch. After centuries of being top dogs, things started to go wrong for the Roman Empire. It was like a giant wobbly jelly that was about to collapse. One of the biggest problems was that the empire had become too big. It was massive. Trying to rule it all from Rome was like trying to control a runaway rhino with a piece of string. News took weeks to travel from one end of the empire to the other. By the time the emperor heard about a problem, it was usually a full-blown disaster. They eventually had to split the empire in 2 just to manage it. Another huge headache was money, or rather the lack of it. The emperors kept spending a fortune on wars, palaces and parties. To pay for it all, they made more coins, but they cheated. They started putting less silver in each coin and mixing it with cheaper metals. People soon realized their money wasn't worth as much. Prices for everything went through the roof. It was like your pocket money suddenly only being able to buy one sweet instead of 10. Everyone felt poorer, and everyone was grumpier. Then there were the invaders. Lots of them. Tribes with scary names like the Goths, Vandals and Huns started attacking the edges of the empire. The Romans called them barbarians because they couldn't understand their languages. To a Roman, they just sounded like they were saying bar, bar, bar. For centuries, the Roman army had been able to fight them off. But now, the army was stretched thin, and the barbarians were getting stronger and more organized. They started breaking through the borders and causing chaos. It was one big, messy invasion party. Finally, the Romans just seemed to lose their mojo. The leaders were often useless generals who became emperor by fighting, not by being clever. There was a long line of terrible emperors who were murdered by their own guards or rivals. This constant chaos at the top made the whole empire shaky. People lost faith in their leaders and in Rome itself. The great powerful Roman Empire, which had once seemed invincible, was getting tired and old. It was crumbling from the inside out like a biscuit that's been left in the tea for too long. So, the Western Roman Empire finally fell apart in 476 AD. A barbarian chieftain kicked out the last Roman emperor, who was ironically a young boy named Romulus. The empire that started with a Romulus ended with one too. Spooky. But did everything Roman just disappear? Not at all. The Romans left behind loads of amazing things that we still use today. They were brilliant builders. They gave us straight roads, strong bridges, and incredible aqueducts that carried water for miles. They even gave us concrete, so next time you see a boring grey building, you can thank the Romans. Their language, Latin, didn't die either. It became the parent of lots of modern languages like Italian, French, Spanish and Portuguese. Even in English, thousands of our words come from Latin. Words like animal, family and circus are all Roman leftovers. So when you're talking, you're secretly speaking a little bit of Latin. They also gave us their alphabet. The very letters you're reading right now are Roman. Without them, you'd be staring at a blank page, which would be very boring indeed. The Romans also left us with some big ideas. Their system of laws became the foundation for legal systems all over the world. The idea that you are innocent until proven guilty, that's Roman. The idea of a republic where people elect their leaders, also Roman. Of course, their politics was often a bloody mess of backstabbing and betrayal, but the basic idea was a good one. They showed that you could build a society based on rules and not just on who had the biggest sword, though that helped too. So what can we learn from the Romans' wacky story? Well, it shows that even the greatest empires don't last forever. It teaches us that being too big can be a problem and that you should probably not make your horse a politician. But it also shows that good ideas like roads, laws and language can last much longer than any empire. The Roman Empire might be long gone, but its ghost is all around us. They were a chaotic, clever and completely crazy bunch, and the world would be a much duller place without their story.